Ready to go? Just call the meeting to order, please.
Mr. Chair?
Here.
Mr. Brody?
Here.
Dr.
Here.
Benedetto?
Here.
Mr. Duffy?
Here.
Mr. Good? Absent. Mr. Close? Mr. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Siano?
Here.
Mr. Weinstein? And Chairman Brody?
Here. A salute to the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Law for this meeting have been satisfied. A copy of the notice having been sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Coaster and filed in the office of the Township Clerk on July 25, 2017. There is an emergency exit through the courtroom doors, and the two exits are at the rear of the room. There is a no smoking policy. No new cases will be started after 10:30 p.m. and no new testimony taken after 11 p.m. In addition, the applicant will be limited to 1 hour of testimony. All meetings will be video and audio taped and shown on the Township of Ocean's Community Cable Channel, Channel 22 on Verizon Fios, and Channel 77 on Cablevision. All cell phones must be turned off, or if you need to make a call, please make your call outside the meeting room. We have two cases that have been carried to May 14, 2018. The first one is Brielle Avenue LLC, Block 184, Lots 1 and 4, 1304 through 1306 Brielle Avenue in Ocean. And the second case is 266 Norwood LLC, Block 22, Lot 82, 266 Norwood Avenue, Deal. Now, we have minutes for approval from the regular meeting of February 26, 2018. Somebody make a motion?
I'll offer.
Second.
Oh, Mr. Reed, you're not.
I'll offer.
I'll second.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Brody?
Yes.
Dr. Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Celia?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Siano?
Yes.
And Chairman Brody?
Yes. Next, we have resolution memorializations. The first one would be Deal Golf and Country Club, Block 26.04, Lot 2, 58 Monmouth Road, Oakhurst. It was a minor site plan approval. Somebody want to offer on that?
I'll offer.
I'll second.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Dr. Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Celia?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Siano?
Yes.
Chairman Brody?
Yes. The next resolution memorialization is Jet Properties 2, Block 4, Lot 4, 42 Well Pond Road, Oakhurst, minor subdivision approval. Would somebody offer on that?
I'll offer.
Second.
Who seconded that? Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Dr. Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Celia?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Siano?
Yes.
Chairman Brody?
Yes. And this evening, the first carried case is Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., Block 216, Lot 10, 1011 Highway 35 Ocean, Zone C3.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Michael Peacock of the firm of Nemad, Perillo, and Davis here on behalf of the applicant, Wells Fargo Bank. As the chairman mentioned, this is for the existing Wells Fargo Bank at 1011 Route 35, also known as Block 216, Lot 10. This is a minor site plan application with certain variances in order for us to perform new lighting improvements at this bank, to relamp the existing fixtures with LED fixtures, and to also install two new 25-foot high light poles, also with LED fixtures. The main impetus of this being actually a state statute. For the record, that's NJSA 17:16K-10, which requires certain minimum illumination requirements within a 50-foot radius of ATMs that are located at financial institutions such as this. And we believe these new lighting improvements will not only be safer for vehicles and customers to the bank that are accessing these ATMs, but it'll also be more aesthetically pleasing. They'll be shielded and more energy efficient as well. With me this evening is Mr. John Palis, Principal of Dynamic Engineering and a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey, who will be briefly giving an overview of the proposed lighting plan. So with that, I'll have Mr. Palis sworn.
You swear in, Mr. Palis, please?
Okay. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mr. Palis, can you briefly give your licensure and educational background for the board?
Certainly. I have a bachelor's and a master's in civil engineering from Rutgers University. I'm a licensed civil engineer in the state of New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, as well as Texas. Testified before over 150 various planning boards and zoning boards throughout the state, including Ocean Township.
Okay, we'll accept your credentials, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Palis, can you give an overview of what I've identified as Exhibit A1 over on the easel?
I'm sorry, do we want to mark our packet?
Oh.
Have Bill and Jim.
Read them first?
Certainly. First time, so.
Okay,
Alright, so I'm going to mark our packet E1.
fine. Okay, Bill, would you like to
I
read your
defer to
report?
Bill because it's really all engineering.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a report dated April 23rd, and I'll try to summarize. It's an existing bank at the corner of Fairmont and 35. And the lighting plan, my recollection, was approved in the early 90s originally, which set the pole locations. Applicants here to replace the under canopy lighting at the drive-through, to relamp most of the poles with LEDs from, I think they were metal halide or high pressure sodium, LEDs efficient, and to add 2 new poles in the island containing the bank building itself. I think, as Mr. Peacock pointed out, to improve the illumination levels in the near vicinity of an ATM for night use. We had a technical review meeting. The new plan is really good. They're constrained by the locations of light poles. However, the illumination levels on the asphalt and on pedestrian surfaces conforms to the ordinance requirements. They need a few really minor variances. I have no engineering problem at all. LED is much more efficient. The one variance that they need, because everything's variances the way the ordinance is set up, is to not dim. The ordinance requires that they dim 50% of the lights in the evening. This is on a highway. It gets evening use, and the real intent of the ordinance was for energy efficiency, not to leave shopping centers totally lit. But LEDs are so much more efficient that it's, in essence, I have no problem with it at all.
Okay, thank you. You proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Palis, as I mentioned, can you just identify Exhibit A1 for the board?
Sure. That's a color version of the aerial of the subject property. For the purposes of my testimony, north would be the top of the page. You can see the property is outlined in white. It's an existing Wells Fargo bank on Route 35 at the intersection with Fairmont Avenue. Very simply, we have commercial uses to the north along the 35 corridor. Directly to our east along Fairmont Avenue is also commercial, as is I believe it's a Sunoco directly to the south. There is a apartment building to the northeast corner of the subject property. As far as the improvements to the site, if you drive by the site, you're not going to really notice any difference from today, from the time we do the improvements. The LED fixtures themselves are a little bit lower profile, fairly similar to what is out here in the parking lot today. Certainly more energy efficient. Due to the standards we need to meet for the state, we are proposing 1 new light fixture at the northwest corner of the building, adjacent to the drive-thru, and then 1 also at the southeast corner of the building. Those are only 2 new fixtures. The others will replace the fixtures on top of utilizing the existing poles throughout the site. The major variances, obviously, the dimming of the lights, obviously with the bank along the 35 corridor, we would request that we would be allowed to leave those lights on for security purposes. There are a couple other variances associated with that. I believe primarily they're existing nonconformities. I can go through the list if the board would like, but for the most part, I would like to say that this is one of the very few applications where we've been able to meet the uniformity ratios across the board. It's not very easy, but by adding the additional fixtures, the new fixtures that we have will reduce light levels. Even though we have a variance to the adjacent properties, we're reducing light levels at those property lines. So overall, I view this as a major improvement from the existing conditions, but it's not really a substantial improvement because it's still going to be a bank with light fixtures throughout the site.
I don't have any further questions.
All right, thank you. Are there any public comments? No public comments, okay. Well, then we'll close the public comments section. And I guess what we will do is close the public hearing, right? Thank you.
So move. Seconded.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Brody?
Yes.
Trustee Benedetto?
Yes.
Trustee
Yes.
Duffy?
Yes.
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 Yes. Will somebody make a motion for a positive resolution?
Motion for a positive resolution.
I second.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Brody?
Yes.
Trustee Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Julia?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Reedy?
Yes.
Mr. Luciano?
Yes.
Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. Next. That was easy.
No, I know. I agree.
No.
Sir, can I ask you a favor?
Thank you.
You been here before?
Couple.
Yeah, when is that happening?
The electronic update. The electronic, we need to get this all.
Okay, Mr. Hirsch. Now we have, the next case is Alfred and Michelle Slinger, Block 33.09, Lot 1, 608 West Park Avenue, Oakhurst Zone R4. Mr. Hirsch.
Good evening, gentlemen. Thomas J. Hirsch on behalf of the applicants, Alfred and Michelle Slinger. By the board for four-lot subdivision, which essentially would be fully conforming except for a very minor one lot being undersized. As we discussed, and I think Mr. Higgins has discussed in his report. So I know you have your engineers, professionals do the research.
Okay.
Yeah, my report's dated April 21st. I'll summarize it. It's a 39,782 square foot lot. It has frontage on 3 streets, West Park Avenue, Vernon, and Oakhurst Parkway, I think it is. It's got, being subdivided into 4 lots. The existing residence will be removed. And 3 of the lots are fully conforming. 1 lot is short by a little over 200 square feet in terms of area. And that's because of the way the streets run. The streets aren't straight. They take a little dog leg, and that dog leg reduces the overall size of the parcel so that the 1 lot would be could be a little bit smaller than the required 10,000 square feet. It wouldn't make sense to subdivide this parcel into 3 lots. I don't think there's any way it could be done that would be reasonable. But there's some advantages to it. It's eliminating the driveway that's on West Park Avenue. All the driveways will be on the side streets. And it's eliminating a through lot condition, which the ordinance discourages. The only other issue is tree location and preservation. They're removing 39 trees. They're replacing 6. So the overall obligation, if the board is going to go with the ordinance and not grant a waiver, would be $12,600 contribution to the shade tree fund. There's one other minor item. The plan shows some of the houses, and the footprints are just generic footprints, but it shows the steps going out into the front yard setback. The zoning officers determined that's part of the building, so those steps have to be within the front yard setback.
Mhm.
So there's no variance being requested for that, even though that's shown on the plans.
All right, thank you, Jim. Bill?
Mr. Chairman, I have a report dated April 21st, and I'll summarize. This would be a minor subdivision, except for the fact that the sanitary sewer had to be extended about 100 feet from an off-site location to the frontage of the site, which makes it a major subdivision, but it's only 4 lots. With regard to most things, I have very little engineering problem. We've had technical review meeting. I've had some telephone conferences with the applicant's engineers. I have some concerns regarding the hardware and some of the design elements of a stormwater management system, but the soils information and percolation or infiltration testing that they did demonstrates that they can meet all ordinance requirements or state requirements for stormwater management. So I have no problem at all, subject to the board approving the matter conditioned upon my letter, comments of my letter of April 21st.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hirsch?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to call Mr. David Fesh as our first witness.
I swear to tell the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Would you like me to qualify Mr. Besh, or
That's not necessary.
I know you qualified before you?
He moved the easel, he's in.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Besh, you have a board on the easel. Explain what that board is.
This rendering, it's a colored version of sheet 4 of 10 of the site plan package submitted for the board's review. It depicts the.
Do you want to mark the site plan set in as A1 and I'll mark this separately? So,
Yeah, because it's a colored version.
yeah,
We'll
I
mark
want
it
to mark
separate.
this A2. Yeah. Alright, and then the site plan set last revised for 418?
That's correct. To orient you to the property, West Park Avenue falls along the top of the page, which would be north, Vernon Street to the right or east, Oakhurst Parkway to the left or west. Again, the property is just under 40,000 square feet, where in the R4 zone, 10,000 square foot is the minimum lot area. So again, we have 3 conforming lots, 1 lot that is short of the required area by 218 square feet. That would be the lot in the southwest corner of the project. There's a small single-family home located centrally on the property as it exists. And as you can see, it's an unusual property in that it has frontage on 3 roadways. It currently takes access and egress off West Park Avenue. So for safety purposes, that would be eliminated with all access to the proposed lots being off the side streets. The main points of concern are obviously stormwater management, and we will work out all the details and reports with Mr. Fitzgerald. The main thing being with a stormwater recharge system centrally located, we want to make sure that when we're percolating the water into the ground, that we don't impact the basements that are proposed, and it will determine if basements are possible. The other issues we'd like to discuss are the suggestion that sidewalks be provided along with Vernon Street and Oakhurst Parkway. There is an existing sidewalk along West Park Avenue, which we agree is important, but as in the properties and the development to the south, there are no sidewalks. We would request relief from that requirement for the sidewalks on those 2 streets. And last but not least would be the shade tree requirement. Yes, we are proposing to remove 39 trees. The ordinance does allow for a landscape coverage of 15 trees per acre. We would ask that that be the requirement for, or the standard held for this property. As between the driveways and utility connections, there is difficulty, shall we say, finding places to put the additional trees. So 4 trees per lot or 16 trees for the subject property. We would ask that that be a considerable or a consideration satisfaction of the ordinance requirement for tree preservation and restoration.
You reviewed Mr. Fitzgerald's report, and I know you just indicated you would work out the drainage items. Is there anything in that report that you have any problem complying with, or will you be able to comply with everything in that report?
We will satisfy the conditions of that report, yes.
And just to confirm what Mr. Higgins was indicating, these are just generic footprints for homes. They're not designed yet, so we're not seeking that variance for front steps.
That's correct.
Front step violation.
Correct. We're just showing a basic box for the board's consideration.
Is, now, where is the existing home?
The existing home is almost square in the center of the property.
Right, and that's where you proposed the drainage
Correct.
collection system, if you will.
We had actually looked at the possibility of keeping that structure during the construction of, and it literally fell right on the four corners designation of the subdivision.
All right, that's all I have, Mr. Besh.
Can you review again what you were saying about the tree? Because again, I'm on the Environmental Commission, and we have been very concerned about the tree canopy. And yeah, 39 trees is a lot of trees to go. So can you get me to understand that a little bit better, what your plan is as far as those trees are concerned?
Well, obviously, we had shown the trees that would be removed would be those that fell within, obviously, the building footprint, the driveway footprint, or within 20 feet. We consider that the standard for how much area is going to be impacted by construction activities. So that was the design standard that required the removal of that many trees. Now we are looking to replace the trees, particularly along the street rights of way, where the ordinance requires a street tree 40 feet on center for the various street frontages, and we're happy to comply with that. But that still leaves us with a large number of trees for replacement that really couldn't be comfortably accommodated on the property. So we'd be looking at 39 trees replacing. That would be 9 trees per lot when the frontages only warrant 2.5.
When are you planning to take the trees down?
Really, it would be the tree removal would be the initial step of the project development.
A large part of this has to do with the regrading of the site to make the stormwater work. Because, as you can see, where Dave pointed out earlier, that horizontal line across the middle of the subdivision, that's a common lot boundary. And the stormwater management installation was put there, and it was sized to accommodate the initial development. It's also set up to be able to be expanded, so there'll be a homeowners association, there has to be, pursuant to state statute. But any homeowner that expands, say, I mean, you couldn't put a tennis court, but say someone wanted to put in a large impervious patio, he could tie in and expand his portion of the stormwater system to accommodate his, whereas, say, someone else never did anything.
So if I understand correctly, the process is you're going to take the trees down, work on the storm management first. That's the process, right?
That's correct.
And then your feeling is once the houses are built, you're only going to put 3 or 4 trees per lot up.
Well, we'd be asking for 4 trees. That would be the 16 trees on a under 1 acre site versus the 15 trees required under the ordinance.
What caliper trees are you proposing to put back?
We've shown 2.5 to 3 inch caliper, but that can be increased.
What are you taking down?
They're all across the board, from 18.
They would be
22.
6 inch caliper or greater.
And above.
Yeah, and above.
Yeah.
That's what the ordinance is. So, what the ordinance requires is replacing a 6 inch caliper tree with either 1 4 inch caliper tree or 2 2.5 inch caliper trees. My suggestion is replace 15 of the trees and then have the balance paid into the shade tree fund.
I mean, I'll make my comment. Whatever combination of trees and money
Yeah.
that equals the 39,
Yeah.
I'm fine with.
Yeah.
I'll leave it up to
Okay.
you guys to determine what that quantity is. Speaking for myself.
And excuse me, and it is correct that there is no sidewalk continued on this, on the, further on down the road, like there's no sidewalk to connect them?
Recollection, yes.
No sidewalks on Vernon or Oak Ridge.
So on
About
that,
the-
I think so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Don't-
Excuse me.
you- same topic, go ahead.
So the West Park Avenue one, however, will stay? The sidewalk
That's
along
what,
West
Yes.
Park?
that's what they're
Yes.
asking for, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, I just want to be clear.
And there's a driveway there now on West Park?
Yes.
So you're gonna curb that and,
That's great.
so just from an engineering perspective and past history, I get the logic that there's no sidewalks further,
South.
thank you,
South.
on either Vernon or Oakhurst. Does that preclude us from requiring them here?
No, they're required by state statute. Recess requires sidewalks on all the frontages. The town has been typically requiring sidewalks. They were for many years waiving them in a situation like this. In the last 2 or 3 years, they've been requiring them everywhere.
And just to link this topic with the prior one, that would necessitate the removal of 7 additional trees.
So your number didn't account for, so the 39 being removed does not count sidewalks?
Correct.
So it would be 47, 6?
That's correct.
46, yeah.
So the 12,000, so the 6 new 2.5s and the 12,600 is based on not having sidewalks?
Correct.
That's correct.
Jim, if there's a analysis done and some of these trees are already dead or about to fall over. Is that
That's
taken into
something the
account?
board could consider. I mean, if they're dead or hazardous, I think in the past, the board has considered the fact not requiring replacement of those trees. But that's a judgment for the board to make.
My client indicates, a little conference we had, and I can put him on the stand, put her on the stand, that that's the case, but obviously, we wouldn't have a specific count, but maybe assuming there was an approval, we could leave that open to verify that count or some trees that are already dead that would have gone, it seems a lot to place on, the developer, the applicant whose home's there, the cost of putting in those new trees. I mean, this is not, these aren't small sums of money.
But it's a standard requirement that we have in town for the Environmental Commission.
Yeah,
That-
that's why I'm bringing up the fact that,
But it's,
in fairness, if they're dead trees, they shouldn't count, that's all. Suggesting to the board.
Well, it's hard to judge what's dead and what's not. You haven't brought us any of those
No.
information.
We would do a review with Mr. Higgins to verify it and our people. If the board would consider that, I mean, it just seemed like an equitable approach to it, if you would. We would have to verify that for you, of course, we're not just gonna pick a number.
In about 3 weeks, it'll be pretty easy.
Right.
Well, it's practical, I mean,
And there can't be, no other trees can be put in north to south on that adjoining line in between all the lots. North to south,
Oh, this,
north to south, yes, that line. Why can't there be more trees planted throughout that line and on the southern border of those properties?
well, typically, I think the type of trees that you would be referring to are screen trees.
No,
No,
I wasn't
No.
referring to that.
You could have columnar trees,
You could
in the tighter
easily
spots.
red spire maples are good.
Yeah.
Quite a few trees throughout there. I'm sure that the property owners, whoever will live there, will want to put trees up in their backyards, won't they?
Yeah, you'd actually be surprised how many people don't want to deal with leaves in the autumn, but that's just an aside comment.
Well, it's here nor there. I mean, you're still taking down 40 trees.
Mhm.
So there's going to be some impact on that.
We can work out the placement of additional trees to I said, balance the installation versus the contribution numbers.
So,
Something we can look at.
so I'm sensing the board's
We get to the same.
Board's
bottom
feeling
line.
is you want to have the replacement either monetarily or physically that the ordinance requires.
Yes.
I'm not as keen on the monetary as much as having actual trees planted. But, that's certainly up for discussion. I'd like to know how many trees are actually dead. That's what I would like to know.
On the survey, at the time that we did the survey, which was back in 2016, there were three or five definitively dead trees at that point in time. We would have to go back and recount.
Yeah, that's good. Get a count. Start with a count.
Yep.
We'll verify the count.
Right,
Was
so
that-
verify the count and then let us know how many more you can plant.
Right.
Please.
That's all I have for you.
Okay, Mr. Besh, thank you.
I have a,
Go ahead.
Can we go back to the sidewalks for a second?
thank you.
Do we know if these streets were, Ocean Township has a bicycle pedestrian plan that identifies future sidewalk? Yeah?
I'm not sure that, I'm not intimately familiar with it, so I think it identifies general bike routes, but I'm not 100% sure of the details, so I don't wanna.
I was going to ask Ron the same question. So, rumor had it that we were going to put sidewalks on Oakhurst, exclusive of this. Is that? Are you?
It's one of those plans that is
Right,
not
so
in concrete.
Pardon the pun. Very good. I mean, for that purpose in the future planning of Oakhurst Parkway, I can't speak to Vernon. I mean, I personally like to see them, and I'm not aware of the bike paths or anything that is in the plans for that purpose, but just from a safety perspective, and the fact that it is right around the corner from the school, and there probably are a lot of walkers that take that route to get to the high school. So,
And the other thing is that Vernon is a major street that the kids who drive to school take when they're leaving
Right.
school.
exactly.
So especially so close to the corner of West Park Avenue, they're coming around that corner pretty fast.
Right.
So it's better to have sidewalks there.
Agreed.
I don't like to spend the applicant's money, but I think that's the practical thing.
Is your witness done?
Good. That was my comment.
Yeah, no, I'm done.
Okay. Your witness is done, Mr. Hirsch?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open this meeting up to public comments. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to comment on this? Jack?
I have more of a question, John. Are you clear on where you're coming out with the trees? If you could kind of package that for me.
Where we're coming out with the trees?
Where you're going with the tree question. It started off at 39, became 40, 4 per lot and so forth. So where are you right now?
It's not where we are, it's where Mr. Hirsch's presentation was, which is, from my understanding,
Yes.
and Mr. Besh indicated that he wanted to work this out with Mr. Higgins. That's my understanding, unless you could clarify that, Mr. Hirsch?
Yeah, I think where the board was at was the count of trees that are being removed. The board would give us an opportunity to review and verify if there are dead trees amongst those trees that should not be taken into account in determining our total tree removal.
I think at first the board has to determine whether or not they think the dead trees should not be taken into
Right,
account.
that was the one issue, and then we were talking about whatever that number is then of trees being removed, making up for it, what we were hearing, although I heard one comment from Mr. Higgins, then he wasn't as concerned about the money side of it, but a combination of the contribution per Mr. Higgins' report or the placement of new trees. And we were going to look at, Mr. Besh was going to go back to the plan and try to see if there are additional trees that could be planted, thus reducing the amount of monetary contribution. I think that was the discussion. So yes, there's a couple of things to work out, but the bottom line, I think, is set.
Right.
I agree with that.
If I may, does that mean that the equivalent of money, trees being, so many trees equals so many dollars, so those trees and the trees that will remain or be planted would be roughly what's there today? 39 less the dead trees or
I would
trees that are being planted won't be what's there today, but the combination the trees that aren't there today after they're planted will be made up with a monetary contribution.
So the,
The equivalent number of trees is not gonna change from today.
that's what I'm
I
trying
think
to.
that's what
Yeah.
the board's
Okay.
position.
All right, thank you.
I think
The
that's a
open
fair
question was whether they
representation,
consider the dead trees
I think
as
that's a fair
viable or not.
representation
Dead trees are an open issue.
of the
Right.
question.
Thank you.
But Jack, you're also aware, at this point, they've indicated that there's 3 to 5 dead trees. To subtract that out of 39, so now we're,
After you
Right.
resolve
That was
the
a couple
dead
of years
trees,
ago.
okay.
after you resolve the dead trees, that number of 39, 40, whatever it is, will be reduced by that amount, and the equivalent trees being planted plus these money trees, if I could call it that, will equal roughly what you have today.
Correct.
Thank you, I understand it, thank you.
Any further questions from the public? And I'll close the public comments section.
So
Okay.
move.
Second.
Are you ready to close the public hearing?
Yep. There's no one else out there.
I moved it.
Second.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Brody?
Yes.
Mr. Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Delia?
Yes.
Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Cristiano?
Yes.
Chairman Barley?
Yes. Okay, at this point, I'd like to, somebody would make a motion for positive resolution.
It does, it's good that, or is it also including sidewalks now, all around, or
Correct.
on the other two
Yes.
streets?
Yes.
Okay.
But if we're gonna put the sidewalks in, we're taking out another
7 trees,
7
yeah.
trees.
That's 46.
That's 46, yeah.
Now we're at 46.
Okay, so now you have to
Yeah.
figure out what you want to do with that.
And I would say I'd leave it up to Mr. Higgins to make that determination.
Well, again, I mean, I don't know how many trees are dead. We don't, I don't feel like we
Yeah.
have
Do you-
a true representation of what's going on.
Yeah, so you want to see it back here then?
I mean, I would prefer that, to have all
Right.
the information to make.
So,
I don't think it's worth holding up.
Okay.
Just, it's either money or trees and, I think
What
we
I
have
will do
professionals
is
who
if-
can take care of it. I would hate to
Yeah.
Right.
waste these
If-
folks' time
yeah.
and bring everybody back.
And
Right.
I can make a report to the board to tell you what happened.
Okay.
Okay.
are you satisfied, Joe, with that? No, because I bring it up that sometimes people come in with a tree expert and so forth, so I know how you feel.
I'm satisfied.
Okay. All right, would somebody
I'll make a
make a motion?
positive resolution, sorry, I couldn't get it out, to approve this application.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Brody?
Yes.
Dr. Benedetto?
Yes.
Mr. Delia?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Cristiano?
Yes.
And Chairman Barley?
Yes.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Okay.
gentlemen.
Yes.
For your time.
What's the name of this?
I don't know.
Go walking off with that pen, it's about a $30 pen.
Yeah.
But I think we have to put that in.
You can have
Part of,
You can have
And then we gotta pay for the expert.
Okay, it's Oakhurst Parkway.
yep, there, they are. Yep.
I met a friend of yours the other day. Some guy from the environmental committee. Steve? Steve? Yeah, Claudette.
Yeah, he's on the environmental commission.
He's a character. He knows a lot.
Right.
Yeah, like stuff like,
knows a
how,
lot.
how can we notate that?
I went over to the library to that thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I left around.
I must have missed you.
Well, it was only kind of going through 23 o'clock.
Yeah, I was there right at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Sure.
Putting this on.
About that one.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
How are you?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Kids.
These guys are ready to go. Okay, the next case, new case, Maureen McCarthy, trustee, block 39.04, lot 7, 504 Bound Road, Ocean, Zone R2. Ms. Krimko is here to represent the applicant.
Correct, Jennifer Krimko from Ansel Grim and Aaron on behalf of the applicant. A lot of the issues were already covered in the hearing that preceded this one. As the second child in the family, I know that my parents became more lenient as we went down the line, but I'm not going to assume that we're going to get the same benefit here, so we know where the board's going. This is a simple 2-lot subdivision. The subdivision itself is relatively fully conforming. The only issue is an existing front yard setback on Bound Road, which we're not changing. Additionally, for the house that's remaining, there's a front yard setback nonconformity. Additionally, my astute engineer over here, who I'll introduce, discovered that while Bound Road and Cold Indian Springs had the proper right-of-way for everywhere else, it stopped at our lot. So we're proposing to dedicate the additional right-of-way, which will slightly exacerbate that front yard setback. But the lots themselves fully conform, and we are eliminating the garage apartment that has historically existed, which keeps the jurisdiction here. I'd like to introduce Walt. I'm saying as much as I can because I know he'll want to talk a lot, and I know that everybody wants to go home, so let's have Walt sworn in.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
And Walt, have you testified before this board in the past?
I have, most recently with the Never-Ending Nobility Crest
I
subdivision.
remember you, sir.
I may not like him, but I'll submit him as an expert then. We'll move A1, the minor subdivision prepared by WJH Engineering. Check the revision date. Everybody puts it in a different place. What do you got, Walt?
It is last revised, updated February
21/17. And then A2 is the aerial with the subdivision marked out. What's the date on that?
That is April 23rd. I think that's today.
Prepared by WJH, I
Yes.
apologize. Rachel Market. And with that, Walt, recognizing that we're not going to have a whole lot to talk about with the sidewalks and the trees, briefly just explain to the board what we're proposing to do here.
Sure, it's an existing 1.3 acre site. There's currently a 2-story dwelling, a couple of sheds and a garage. That home fronts on Bound Road. As Ms. Krimko indicated, the home is 35.6 feet to the front porch to the right-of-way along Bound Road. And there's 50 feet of right-of-way along Bound Road in Cold Indian Spring. What we're proposing are 2 new lot lines to create 1 new lot. The new lot will conform to your ordinance in every aspect. There will be no variances at all. And technically, the existing front yard setback will get worse for the existing lot because we're dedicating additional right-of-way.
And well, in Bill's letter, he had asked, there were 2 conditions if the board would approve this. One would be a soil boring, just to show that in the event that this lot is developed, which we expect at some point it would, we're not proposing to develop it, but in the event it was, that it could accommodate the development, and that any construction would not have the crawl space or basement less than 2 feet above seasonal high water. Can we agree to that?
We can. It is a heavily wooded lot, and just access might be a concern for the permeability test. That would be my only concern.
I used to dig them with a hand auger. You can get extensions 4 foot right at Home Depot. Work out.
Yeah. We'll work it out. We don't do them by hand because we find that the backhoe gives a much better profile, but that's what Mr. Fitzgerald
If
wants.
Mr. Fitzgerald will be satisfied with it done by hand, then we will do it by hand.
We'd be happy with it anyway. We just want to be sure that we're not creating an infeasible lot.
Sure.
So that
Oh, I'm sorry.
nobody gets sued for taking in the town.
Okay.
I wrote it down, Rachel, I skipped it, sorry.
Certainly.
I just did his report. And then the last thing in Bill's was the sidewalks, and well, in tech review, we had requested perhaps they consider waiving it. We just heard from the last hearing that we're gonna be constructing the sidewalks.
Okay, Jim, can you read your report, please?
Yeah, I'm just gonna summarize. I mean, basically, Jennifer covered all the variance issues and the road widening and so on. The only issue is tree location and preservation, and the Environmental Commission submitted a report. And they were concerned, even though there's no development occurring now, that at some time in the future, there's going to be a number of trees removed. And they asked that the planning board give consideration to preserving as many mature trees as possible. They suggested a strict tree count is in order. However, when you don't know where the trees are gonna come down, I don't know what that tree count would actually accomplish.
Well, I
The only
think-
thing I could consider is if the board require that a tree location and preservation plan be submitted at the time a house is built on the site.
And I was gonna suggest, I believe your ordinance requires that anyway at this point. So any
And-
construction that's done here is going to have to submit the tree removal plan and a tree removal permit and have to abide by your ordinance the same way we would on the larger scale, so.
And the other issue is sidewalks and curbs are gonna remove a bunch of trees, and there's no information on that. So when, I don't know when they're gonna be constructed, whether they'll be constructed prior to the filing of the subdivision or subsequent when the house is developed, I don't know.
Well, I can answer that. I mean, we could certainly post a bond for the sidewalks, but my guess would be, since I don't believe that this owner is going to be the one developing it, and she'll want to sell the lot, my guess is that, it may be done in advance, but certainly when we submit the plans for that, when we revise the plans to show the sidewalks, we will identify the number of qualifying trees that are being removed, and then at that point, submit to the board our either replacement or payment in lieu per tree as any condition of approval. So basically, kind of the same thing as the last one, we're gonna comply with your ordinance.
Or they could ask to be exempted from putting the sidewalks in, as Mr. Hirsch did.
Well, I heard where that went.
I'm just saying. Could ask. Well, you might have some tree lovers. I don't know.
Particularly here, because the sidewalks really don't.
They're not going to help on Cold Indian Springs Road.
No, they don't lead. I mean, it's a tired argument, but they don't lead to other sidewalks.
No, I mean, we
Yeah,
took,
but as somebody who lives over there, it would be nice to actually have some people that start to grow some sidewalks over there, that especially in that area, so.
I mean, we
Sidewalks.
pleaded the argument with Bill and Jim in tech review and fell pretty flat on it. You know, certainly it's our preference, since it is just a 2-lot subdivision, it's the property owner, and we're just creating one new lot. You know, it's significant if the town were putting sidewalks in, we'd only be required, well, I guess our pro rata share, but in any event, we took a look and there are no sidewalks all the way till the first intersection heading to the north, east, west?
That's Steel Road.
Towards Steel, I mean, I grew up there, but
Towards-
towards the church on the hill.
Right.
There's no sidewalks there at all, and then down Bound Road, there's not for hundreds of feet, so,
Isn't there sidewalks on Bound Road on the opposite side of the street?
Yes.
yeah, on the opposite side, not on this side.
Yes, they're definitely.
All the way?
All the way.
All along the frontage.
Yeah,
You can actually. You have pretty good eyes. But
Are they-
I know
You
because
can see 'em all.
I've been in Ocean all my life, so.
you know, and also looking at it on Cold Indian Springs, I don't know right where we are, but as you go down, it does, I mean, short of moving a lot of utility poles, it's very unlikely that sidewalks are ever gonna be put in there, because it appears that the utility poles are right kind of at the edge. So it may be worth, this kind of wooded, it may be worth saving some trees and the rural character here.
Sidewalks are probably.
Okay. Jim? I mean, Bill?
Some of the areas out here have been difficult in terms of grading to get sidewalks and I don't know specifically on this property how difficult it would be. Maybe Walt is a little bit more familiar with the details, but I don't think Bound Road is nearly as bad as Cold Indian Springs. That's my recollection.
Okay.
Is there even a curb on that?
No, they're gonna curb it too.
No, but
Yeah.
there isn't currently.
There isn't a curb right
No.
now.
The curb would actually
That would
soften the
limit-
blow to some degree, because the difficulty is that you typically want a fairly flat right-of-way area with a sidewalk. The curb, if you have a steep hill, the curb raises it up, which means you can make it flat without going as far.
Right, but what my
Problem.
point,
The problem with the curb is, since we're dedicating right-of-way, our property line is pulling back, that means we'd have to, in order to put a curb in at the edge of the right-of-way.
No, you don't do it at the edge of the right-of-way, you do it at the edge of the traveled way.
Okay, I
You
was
do
gonna
it.
say, 'cause if we had to pull it back to the right-of-way, we'd have
No.
to take down
No.
14.5 feet of trees all
No,
the
we
way
don't,
down.
we're not looking for that, we're looking to curb the edge of, how's the topography on Cold Indian for?
It's about 5%.
Not terrible.
No.
Because if you put a half a foot of curb in, that cuts it right in half. So,
But it runs along Cold Indian Springs.
but I think there's erosion there as a result of there not being a curb there.
Probably
That's
is,
what I was
right.
trying to get at.
Right, no,
You know, on that corner there, it's really been eroded a lot because there's something holding it back.
right,
The land is just falling apart there.
well, it's sandy. Well, the curbs will help it, definitively.
Definitely.
Curbs will,
And may we suggest a partial waiver, that the board not require the sidewalks, but just the curbing?
No.
I'm
Speaking just for yourself, though.
speaking for myself,
Speaking
so
for yourself, though, Councilman and Chair.
I'm gonna try this. So if there are sidewalks on Bound, I mean, I would be amenable not to having it on the other side. So if it's all the way down Bound now, and we're not gonna extend it, which I can't see us spending money on putting sidewalks on both sides of that street, I'd be amenable to not putting them on Bound, definitely keeping the curbs, and then I'll yield to the engineers on the sidewalk on Cold Indian. I hear your arguments. That I'll leave up to you.
are
So-
there sidewalks along Granada, along, you know, we're talking about the south side of Cold Indian? The subdivision that, well, it's called Granada, it was Meyer Gold and Benny Shanzer put in the seventies.
Oh, the south side where I grew up?
Yeah. Are there sidewalks?
28 Stonehenge.
I think there are, right?
When it starts at Ellen Court, for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
I haven't been back there in about 30 years. I don't know on the other side of on the McCarthy side of Ellen Court, but I know that there are from Ellen Court up to that other street that we turned into.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking
I
about.
wasn't really driving then.
The sidewalk doesn't go all the way around to the church?
No, I think for the church side, it's on the other side. It might.
No, it does. It goes back up. There's sidewalk all the way up.
Here, on Cold
On both
Indian, there's
sides.
sidewalk on both sides.
It stops at
And it
Ellen.
stops at Ellen Court.
Stops at Ellen, and then there's those houses along that side, and then it goes to the point.
It's just this corner right here, there's there, that one big lot and the other one where that small red house is, there's no
Sidewalk there.
no sidewalk. I don't even know if there's any curb on it, on either one of them. I think it's all, just Bound Road has the curb.
Cute.
Walt, there's no curb on either side of Cold Indian?
I don't know about the other side.
Not at that corner, no.
No,
I didn't think so.
there's no curb over there either. That's part of Capitol Springs, right? I don't think there is.
I'm not sure.
I only go by it every day.
Yeah, right.
Wait 1 second.
You ought to know.
While you're looking on that, can I ask your engineer a question? Since so I get that you're giving us land back for the right of way. So I'm looking at your page 4 of this. So the whole lot is what's pictured. The whole current lot is what's pictured, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then so the proposed lot A is, I'm trying to figure out what the new and the old are. So I see proposed lot B is the dotted line below the center. Right. So everything outside of that is you're giving back to the right of way?
The right of way would be along here. So we're giving an 8.5 foot sliver along both new lots.
Right, so this piece or this piece?
This piece.
So what's all this?
This wooded area, that's just that's just the lot.
So this proposed B goes all the way out to here, not
Yeah.
just this dotted line?
Correct.
So what's this? Proposed rear yard setback line, proposed front yard setback, it's a house?
That's the envelope that the home
Got it.
Could fit
All right,
in.
very good.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
when I was younger, I had.
I'm with you.
I thought that was again.
And which way would the driveway go? Would it go out on Bound or would it go out on Cold Indian for the second
So
lot?
we've left that open,
Yeah, I just-
but it makes sense to go on Bound because it would give a much bigger rear yard.
Okay.
You did it on Overland Springs because of your setbacks, you have 2 front setbacks.
Okay.
It's narrow this way, simply small.
Okay.
But if somebody could make it work, you could go
Sure.
the other way.
No, I was just curious.
There actually, just so the board knows, there is curbing along the bound frontage. And right as it gets to Cold Indians, there's curbing just stops.
That's right past the end.
Okay.
And there's no sidewalks or curbing on either side on Cold Indians that you can see. So we have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Like to open this to public comments? No public comments? Like to close that? Close the public hearing, please.
So move.
Second.
Yes.
Mr. Brody?
Yes.
Dr. Benedetto?
Closing the hearing? Yes? Yes, I am.
Ms. Delia?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Yes.
Piano?
Yes.
Chairman Farrelly?
Yes. Somebody make a motion for a positive resolution?
That includes what, Mr. Chairman? I'm sorry. Just to be clear.
Yeah.
Well, certainly curb along
You have it to
Old
eat
Indian.
today?
There's curb on
Yeah, I just.
Town Road, so any existing deteriorated curb would be replaced, subject to, to the satisfaction of the township engineer.
Then the sidewalk question?
The sidewalk is wherever the board prefers.
I'd say put it in.
I'm gonna say, if it's already on bound, there's no sense in putting it on the other side, but that's just, again, my one of 7 opinions.
Anyone else on this sidewalk question?
Can you please refresh my memory of the ordinance? The town ordinance is what? Are we requiring our,
Well, recess requires sidewalk, which is a state,
Residential site
yeah,
improvements.
residential site improvements, a standardized development set of improvements for development standards for residential development.
oh, I think it's the
Well,
same
we-
thing like the trees.
Wait, but Bill, doesn't recess depend on the type of road, what
It
the
does.
characterization of the
It-
road is, and they only require it on one side of the road? They don't require it on both sides.
I understand, and there's no sidewalk on Old Indian. Okay, I
I'm
mean,
not
that's,
suggesting it in one way or the other in favor or against it, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, recess doesn't require that both sides of the road, and not every road, I don't know if this one would even qualify.
right, but it's kind of depends upon, it's kind of nebulous, so the board is more familiar with whether they want sidewalks. That's
No,
why
I get it, and that's what I'm saying, because recess really is for more of a major subdivision where you're creating a development, so to speak.
So
In that context.
Covers minors,
You know, it does.
yeah.
For me, it's the same issue like the trees. I feel as though we're not doing the proper thing. It's our town. It should be nice. It should have sidewalks, curbs, and enough trees. Period. And that's how I feel about it. So I'm for sidewalks and curbs. I mean, it's a big subdivision. It's 2 big lots there. In Wayside. And Wayside's a nice part of town, just as Oakhurst is.
And Massa.
Touche.
I mean, that's my personal opinion.
Because we're all on board then that the positive resolution will include sidewalks.
I won't deny that, that's fine.
Are we saying both Cold Indian Springs and Bound, or just one? So the resolution.
Both.
Both.
He would like,
What do you think, Chairman?
Chairman thinks that he's a lot older than you and he likes things the way they were. So, I'm not exactly in favor of sidewalks everywhere because you got to take the trees out.
They're gonna take the trees out no matter what to put the curb in, correct?
No, as I was trying to say to you, when you curb the road, you're actually making it easier on the slope, so that if you're putting in sidewalks, then you start to cut into the hill and you have to grade up. If you're just putting the curb in, it actually softens the slope at the edge, so it's not a sidewalk, it's not a tree issue putting in the
To
curb.
put sidewalks in, we'd have to clear back 6 feet.
Right, correct, that's my point.
So we all know this corner, what we're talking about, correct? And there's no sidewalks there
Correct.
whatsoever. And if anybody walks in that area, especially at that intersection, it is disastrous. You probably don't walk in that area. And as that area gets more developed, there should be sidewalks. And I don't care how many trees you take down, you'll just put them somewhere else on the property.
It's
all.
also, it's not a killer, because if you have the roads, the hill sloping down to the road now, and you put a 6-inch at least piece of curb in there, you've now softened that slope and
Right.
given yourself some room that the sidewalk can go in.
Well, but also, Mr. Di Benedetto, we might not be able to put it on the property at this point since we're not developing it.
Right.
So we may have to do the payment for the trees if they're being removed and they qualify, because that's wooded. We're not gonna take trees down to put more up right now.
Yeah, there's no
Well,
place
the
on
other
the property
alternative is to
put
pay for the
trees.
sidewalks
Yeah.
and not bother with the construction. I mean, that's,
What, I'm sorry?
the other alternative that the board has done occasionally is to let an applicant pay for the sidewalk part of the construction. And let
I'm
that.
not sure I understand what you meant by that.
So just like the tree.
There have been
Pay into a
developers who have been required. I'm just.
For example, we did it
And
with.
you should know.
Okay, but you're seeking to just subdivide, right? And
Do nothing else.
and you want the approval. So the approval is subject to putting curbs in.
I understand,
sidewalks
but
in,
what
right?
I think that what Bill was suggesting is sometimes you can pay, like the trees, you can pay into the fund, and then if and when they're built, it's paid for. So the trees don't have to be taken down now, they can be taken down when it's.
You mean the tree part?
You're not
Just
taking the trees down now.
if they're putting a
We're
sidewalk
putting sidewalks in, we are.
They'll take down some trees.
for the sidewalk.
So if we tell them that subdivide with the approval of putting in curbs and sidewalks, they gotta put those in immediately.
Before we can sell
Right.
that lot and get the yes,
Why can't you make it a condition of approval of selling the lot?
because you can't create
Well,
the
you-
lot to sell it without perfecting the subdivision.
Right.
We can't perfect the subdivision until this is done.
There you go.
So then the paper solution would solve both problems. They'd get their approval, and we'd still get our sidewalks and curbs when it's sold.
No, you get the sidewalks and the tur-
You
curbs
wanna
now.
get them now, because if
But-
you have the money,
Right.
you're gonna put them in.
You're not
In
gonna
other
make
words,
it
if they pay into a
conditional-
fund,
You're not gonna make it conditionable upon.
So they're
the
gonna
person
put the
buying
sidewalks,
house.
I wanna be clear, cause for the resolution, they're gonna do the sidewalks and curbs now, but any trees that come out, they pay into the fund if they're within the parameters of paying for it. Okay.
Right, we'll comply with the ordinance with regard to any trees that come down. And if and when this lot is developed, whoever develops it will be obligated to abide by your tree ordinance.
Okay.
And then that tree
Can you
preservation.
just show us where the sidewalks are gonna go that we're talking about here?
All along the frontage, there's no sidewalks here at all.
Okay, is,
Curb exists along down, and it's right here where it makes the curb, so it'd be a curb along.
so if I'm just looking at it right now, to the right of that, there are no sidewalks of that
Correct.
property.
No sidewalks here.
Only to the next intersection.
But there is on the other side of the street.
No.
No, on.
No, there's
No.
none
No.
on Cold Indian Springs
None
Road.
on Cold Indian.
None on Cold
Okay,
Indian
that's
Springs.
right.
And
There's
that
none on Cold.
stretch.
Just on Bound. Okay.
And then the
There's
tree.
just gonna be just a sidewalk and no other sidewalks on either
Correct.
side of that.
Going to nowhere with hopefully somebody will do something about it. So, you know, it's I live there,
Sidewalk to
you know,
nowhere.
it's I have a 5-year-old son
I have a
who
question.
regularly rides his bikes around town. I hope that people will put
Why
in
can't
sidewalks.
we just make it contingent on the buyer to do that? Or you have to do this now?
No,
Can't sell it without perfecting, right?
That was the explanation. So
let me think this through and Nick.
how you would have to do it by a deed
Well,
restriction.
no, we would have, yes, I mean, we could arguably do a deed restriction that when the property is developed,
Mhm.
sidewalks would have to go in, but we would, for both, but, yeah, we could technically post the bonds for it.
Then you have to carry a bond until an
Right.
until you sell it.
unspecified time in the
Okay.
future.
I just was curious if you could put the onus on the buyer.
That's what I was trying to get at before,
Yeah.
you know? Why do you have to put the curb?
And it's hard for a single family
Well-
homeowner to get a bond in the first place?
You
know?
could also, you could say that you could put a deed restriction in the lot that at such time prior to issuance of any CO, prior to issuance of any construction permit, curb and sidewalk will be bonded. Prior to issuance of any CO, it should be instructed.
And that certainly would cover the new lot, and
And
that
that
would
puts
be
it-
helpful because we don't know where the driveway's going. So
Right.
now
How
we're
about a-
spending the money on curb and sidewalk.
How about if we
Someone-
we continue the curb all the way around and then put the provision in just for the sidewalk?
So that if as in any CO on this lot requires sidewalks?
Yes.
How about that?
That's more.
Construction permit requires bonding for sidewalks, CO requires sidewalks.
Okay, and then for the lot where the existing home is, that one's not being developed, so then that just gets curbing, no sidewalk.
The curb is there already,
Right.
right?
Well, not on the cold
Maybe.
Indian side, they're gonna bring it
No,
back.
but-
The old lot.
Where the existing
The old
home
Old
was.
lot, then you would probably
Existing
want the
lot
sidewalk
stays the way it is,
constructed
right?
now.
You're just gonna curb all the way around on the end of the property on Cold Indian
Right.
now,
Right,
and then sidewalk will be subject to the CO
right, sidewalk for the new lot.
in the lot.
Wait, so what happens to the old
No,
lot
no,
when the new lot
the old
gets
lot
done?
too.
Because now you're splitting them too. Because
Oh, the new
you
lot
either
should
have
get
to
it
do them all
now.
at once, or you either have
No,
to
the
not
old
do them.
lot.
I'm sorry, the old lot should get, the whole lot. The lot with the home on it should get the
Alright,
sidewalk.
fine.
Get it?
So everything gets curbing, the lot with the home gets the sidewalk now.
Yes.
There can be a condition that when the other lot is developed, it has to be bonded for sidewalks and no CO issued until sidewalks go in. Now, we could decide to put them all in right now, and then we don't have to worry about it.
That's correct.
But at least it gives us the option.
Correct.
Got it.
And then that tree preservation plan is gonna
We
be,
have no choice, the trees are the trees.
And throw one other little wrinkle into it. It might be that for the existing residents, when the sidewalk is designed and put in, if it has to be moved somewhat to save some trees, that might be something that could be given consideration.
I mean, yeah, we're not agreeing to where the sidewalk's going
Yeah,
at this point,
yeah.
just that the sidewalk's going in. Okay.
So let me get this clear. You're agreeing that the sidewalk is going completely around the perimeter?
That ultimately, the
Ultimately.
sidewalk will be all the way around the perimeter. However, the board is agreeing that if we choose, we could deed restrict the vacant lot such that a sidewalk must be bonded for at building permit and constructed prior to CO.
Very good.
Sorry, the young guys won.
That happened.
There's more of them than us here. Okay. So now Rachel.
We need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion for a positive resolution
Second.
as stated.
I second. You gotta smile, oh my god.
Mr. Sheriff.
Yes.
Mr. Brody.
Yes.
Dr. Benedetto.
Yes.
Mrs. Delia.
Yes.
Mrs. Duffy.
Yes.
Mrs. Levy.
Yes.
Mrs. Piano.
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodes.
Yes. Okay, is there a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Make a motion.
Let
to
me
close.
write this down, so I remember.
Interesting.
Got some good church time.
Unless you want to call, you're done.
I always forget to bring it up. Not that I'm going anywhere.
Well, do you actually have service in here? 'Cause
Yankees are winning 4-0. Yankees are winning 4-0. Are they? Been on the whole time.
Oh, well, progress, sidewalk. I don't want them in my neighborhood.
I like them.
Did we
I don't
vote
want
yet?
them in my
We're
neighborhood.
still waiting for you,
It'll cause
right?
a lot of trouble for me.
No, it's Jennifer's over here.
We're not in front of my house.
That's it.
We don't have a mark.